Corn may be king on a lot of farms, but on this farm, the tomatoes are the queen. So we're going to start planting our heirloom tomatoes here on the farm, and the first thing I do is I start to gather the things that I need in which to help the tomatoes grow. Now what I have here, we only plant heirloom tomatoes, and we do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're seed savers, so all of these tomatoes are started from seeds that we saved from the following year. Next, I really like the heirloom tomatoes because I think that they taste better. They have a thinner skin, so they don't travel well, so they're not really good for mass production, but they're great from farm to plate. So the first thing I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit about the things that I use in which to get our tomatoes to have a good start. And a couple of things here. I use eggshells, and the eggshells put natural calcium back into the soil, and tomatoes, peppers, and everything that's in the nightshade family, eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, those kind of plants really benefit from a high level of calcium in the soil. And you can get that from the eggshells. The other thing that I like to use is worm castings. Worm castings, we have worms here that we use for composting, and these are the castings from the worm compost. And this is a really nice, rich fertilizer that I also add into our compost as well. A couple of more amendments that I like to use when I'm planting tomato is wood ash. This is just plain old from the burn piles that Mark, when he burns just regular wood, nothing treated here on the farm, we collect the wood ash. Now, we don't go to the trouble of sifting anything, whether it be compost or whether it be wood ash, any of it. And the reason is nature doesn't sift out all the debris, and it actually aerates the soil. So I don't have any problem with these chunks of wood. They'll break down, and they're not really going to tie up that much nitrogen because they're already burnt down. But wood ash adds a lot of phosphate back into my soil here, which is another thing that tomatoes really need. So, another thing that we use here is fish fertilizer. Now, it doesn't smell good, but once we have the tomatoes planted, I really give them a nice watering in with some fish emulsion here. And this kind of sets the roots and gives it a little bit of a kick boost to go to make the tomatoes grow big. So let's get started planting. So what I'm going to do here is we like to plant up against these cattle panels. They're really sturdy and they hold these tomatoes. One of the things about heirloom tomatoes is these tomatoes tend to be very big. They can get up to 10 feet tall. So you need something sturdy. Those little cheap tomato cages that you find at the store, they won't hold these heirloom tomatoes. So these cattle panels are great, or you need a sturdier, like a bigger, these T-posts, something sturdy to hold these tomatoes up. So let's get started digging the hoe. So what we're doing is Mark has already really composted this soil. As you can see, it's really nice and loomy. We're just going to dig into it down here. And what I want to do is I want to get a really deep hoe. And the thing about tomatoes is if you start them too early in the year, we don't start tomatoes here in Tennessee until after the 15th of April. And that kind of gives us out of our frost date. And we could get a frost here and we'd have to protect them later on. But the 15th seems to be a good date for us. But not only that, it warms up my soil. And tomatoes, a lot of people plant them early thinking they're going to get these early tomatoes, but they're putting them in this cold soil and it will actually stunt them. And what will happen is the tomatoes that I planted thinking I'm going to get 2 more weeks that come up here, the ones that I planted now will outgrow these because they're going into this warm soil. Tomatoes like that warm soil. So I've got a really nice deep hoe here, as you can see. Now I'm going to start amending it. And the first thing I'm going to put into it is another good handful of compost, because I want these tomatoes to really get a good base on their root system. The next thing I'm going to go into is just a little bit of eggshell. Right in that hole, just mix it up. Again, I'm adding calcium to the soil. The next will be wood ash, just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot of it. Again, mixing it up into that composted soil, get it nice and loomy. And then my worm castings, just a little bit in there, again, mixing it up. So that's the hole that I've got started for my tomatoes. Now I'm going to take my tomatoes, you see the roots here, but I'm going to actually lay this tomato to the side because it will root all the way here and it will give me a much sturdier plant. And one of the things about heirloom tomatoes is that heirloom tomatoes, because they tend to grow so big, you need a really good strong root system to hold up these stems. So just kind of set it down, be gentle with it, and I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring some dirt around here and just get it covered in, just like that, and start filling up around it. And once I have it about this deep, I'm going to go ahead, and that's when I'm going to hit it again, and just top dress it with a little bit of this worm casting mixed in here. The next thing I'm going to do is I will go ahead and then I'm going to water it in with just a little bit of fish emulsion just to give it a good start. And these tomatoes will be amazing. Now, heirloom tomatoes take a lot longer than, let's say, an early girl or an early boy tomato that's an F1 hybrid, but they are completely worth the wait.